Hi, I'm Dominic, and this is my evaluation question 1 for my AS Media Studies. For my AS Media Studies, I had to construct an opening scene of a film which had to be from the horror genre. To make the best horror opening possible, I did some research on horror films. This included the history, subgenres, hybrid genres, the macro elements, which are gender, audience, narrative and representations, and also the micro elements, which are mise-en-scène, sound, editing and camera work. So then I took this research and spent a lot of time into evaluating the macro and micro elements in the first 2 to 3 minutes of openings of different horror films. I then was able to apply these real media products to my own piece. Firstly, I watched the opening of Blade. From this scene I got inspiration from the camera work. There was many different shots, such as a dolly shot, giving different perspectives on the location. Also, tracking shots. This followed the character. Both these shots created tension and an unease to the film. So I took note and used similar shots in my own piece to create the eerie suspense in the opening. In addition, Blade consisted of good iconography of the horror genre. The setting was in a crowded room in a rave situation, or known as the bloodbath, which was important as it isolates the victim. So in my opening, we used this idea and brainstormed around isolated locations. We ended up with an elevator. We found this good as it was different, as well as it being a lone location, which was good as it isolated our victim as well as in the Blade where it isolated their victim. Elevators are also good for the stereotypical good horror setting, due to it being easy to make it completely black. This is good as relating it to my research, it is more effective at making horror scarier, as though dark locations connote danger, which creates more suspense and builds that thought of the sense of the unknown, devil or paranormal character. This all links in with use of low-key lighting. The rave music also played a part in the non-diegetic sound used in our opening. This is because it helps build suspense due to being it fast and loud. Therefore, we use non-diegetic sound of a song which gets faster and louder, creating suspense in our opening. However, from Blade, we did not use the subgenre of horror. This is because it involves too much makeup and effects. This is the blood and deaths. This is hard to execute and making it unrealistic. Therefore, we didn't use this slasher type subgenre of horror, as it would be unreal, which leads to the audience being less scared, which is obviously not the aim of a horror film. Then moving on, I analysed the 1996 horror sensation, Scream. The opening of Scream was very iconic, as Drew Barrymore was the famous death at the start. Drew Barrymore is famous from Charlie's Angels. This death was also famous due to Drew talking about horrors and portraying all the horror conventions without realising she was in the same situation as the generic slasher horror film genre. I found this very intriguing and wanted to use this idea as it helped create tension. However, noticing this scene created suspense and tension through its dialogue, I had a change of mind. This is because I realised how hard it is again to execute the opening to look like a real media product when including dialogue. So although I didn't end up taking up this idea, it awakened me to tell me that I didn't want dialogue or very little at all, because it would ruin the suspense in my own opening. I would now create the suspense and tension in my own opening through non-diegetic sound. On the other hand, I gained many inspirations from this film, such as the mise-en-scene, specifically the costumes. In Scream, the victim wears cream and white clothes, and in our opening, the victim wears a white top and has white cream shoes. The reason for this is when I evaluated and analysed Scream, I pointed out the clothes was chosen on purpose, so that the victim had the stereotypical feature of innocence, because the colour white connotes purity. To add, Scream himself wore all black clothes, which then I gave our antagonist all black clothes. This was to portray the character as evil and the antagonist due to the colour black connotating evil, dark and death. However, we did not use the slasher subgenre idea again, as well as a stereotype of the victim being female and the antagonist being male. This then leads on to the third film that took influence on our opening, The Woman in Black. As I mentioned, we did not use the stereotypes or character roles in horror films and went against the conventions. I got this influence of using a female antagonist from the film The Woman in Black. The reason I took inspiration from this idea because our subgenres of horror films are the same, the paranormal idea. Women therefore can be as scary or even scarier in this type of horror, as they do not have to be intimidating or big or strong. They just have to have unrevealed identities and look possessed with a creepy sense to them. I then took aboard this as casting was easier and portraying a evil possessed look was more successful to carry out, as you could use ideas such as placing the hair over the face to add to the possessed behaviour. We then took up the idea that our antagonist needed a trait of how she possesses her victims. The Woman in Black inspired me to come up with the idea of something deep inside that blacks out the soul and body of the victim. This generated the idea that the Woman in Black can possess the victim with a look, which rolled onto the idea of our antagonist's eyes turning black, as well as anything she wants within range. Hence leading to our title, Blackout. This supported my research as I evaluated how black and also red is used mostly in horror due to them connoting death and evil. Therefore, the title for our opening, in theory, suits the horror genre. The last inspiration we took from The Woman in Black was the credits. This is because our title has black within it and so does The Woman in Black. So it made sense our titles were black, just like the titles were black for The Woman in Black. This also links into the setting, the narrative, because black represents death and darkness. Therefore, the audience knows it's a horror film from the titles, such as funky titles would be used for a comedy. Blackout titles are used for a horror. Finally, using my research on different theories, our opening applies to the uses and gratifications theory. This is because the audience uses the opening and gratifies this media in ways such as escapism. Our opening would be used as escapism because it's paranormal, which is mainly viewed as something that does not exist. Therefore, this is escapism for the audience because they are watching the media to escape from life and reality. The main part of the opening that would be escapism is the blacked out eyes, as they represent possessed and abnormal features.